I think that confrontation that happens now between Russia and Ukraine, eventually God is able to use it to free not only Ukraine but to free Russia as well. Mm-hmm. Because Russia became like a big concentration camp in some ways. There's no freedom, there's no ability to have alternative views, beliefs from the mainstream. It's harder and harder. People are dying, people are persecuted, and we had that freedom. I remember 90s after the Soviet Union has collapsed, and we had 10 golden years of evangelistic efforts when people would be willing to come in thousands to hear about the gospel. There was huge hunger for divine presence in their lives. And those were golden years of opportunity. Unfortunately, as a society, there is a lot of that nostalgia for Soviet Union values and ways of, things, and the desire to
the good old days.
Yeah, recreate those old days,
right.
Bring back all the aggression and violence that we witnessed there, and lack of freedom that we had back in Soviet Union, unfortunately. And my strong conviction is that God is going to use that. And yes, there is going to be a high price paid by Ukrainians who are dying to bring some healing to both countries.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? That's a perspective I have not heard yet, that this is a way to free Russians as well. That'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and where God's hand is on this. A lot of people see things like this and why would God allow something like this? And sometimes you got to watch things play all the way out to find out where is God? Where is God on this? Hello, this is Jim, and you are on the Christian Life Empowerment Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Angela Whitbeck and I are here with Violeta Bilan. I said that right. I've been trying for all this time to get that right, but I got it right. So we're good to go. So, Violet, we are talking to you because, oh man, we're all experiencing this stress and everything else from this big war between Russia and Ukraine. But you are experiencing this stress in a different way than we are. I mean, you are, and see, I didn't even ask you from before this. So guess what? You get to learn right along with Angela and I about where Violet comes from. And she is a Russian-speaking pastor. She's moved to the Sunnyside Adventist Church in Portland, which is a huge church. It's basically the flagship church for this area. And so tell us a little bit about, well, you're here in the United States, but you are a Russian-speaking person. So tell us where you came from and a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I was born in the western part of Ukraine. But when I was 2, my family moved to Georgia. So my whole childhood I spent in Georgia and had to relocate when the war has started between Abkhazia and Georgia. So,
and sorry, that's Georgia, Russia?
Georgia, Soviet Union at that time.
Soviet Union,
yes.
not Georgia, United States.
No. It's a country. And then I spent the rest of my life in Ukraine. I went to school in Zaokski, it's in Russia, and then came back to eastern part of Ukraine, Dnipro, where my husband is from. And in 2003, we moved to the United States. We lived for almost 5 years in Massachusetts. And then in 2007, we joined Oregon Conference. My husband used to be a pastor here. So we've been with Oregon Conference for quite a while. Yeah.
So when did you become a pastor?
I became a pastor 5 years ago. Before that, my ministry was chaplain's ministry. And then we switched with my husband. My husband became a chaplain, and he works now at St. Vincent Providence Hospital here in Portland. And I became an associate pastor with this Russian-speaking church in Portland, Living Word. It's a Russian-speaking church because we have a lot of different ethnic groups that, a lot of people were born in Soviet Union, and Russian was the common language. So Ukrainians can understand Russian. But Russians have hard time understanding Ukrainian. And of course, we cannot understand Moldovan or Gagauz language because those are two different groups of languages. One is from, Latin group of languages, and another one is close to Turkish. So just because we have so many different languages, we use Russian as our common to understand each other.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you to ask a question back there. You sound like you're going to ask a question. So
Well,
go ahead. Don't,
so
just
how
go right
does
through me.
so with everything going on with Russian invading, how is that affecting you personally and as a church, a Russian-speaking church, where there's Russians and Ukrainians, I assume, attending here?
Frankly saying, for most of the Russians here, they made their choice. By relocating to the United States, they made a statement that they feel like living in Russia today, it's really hard place to be because we live in absolutely different informational world. We have completely different narratives. And just today I read a letter that was written to the General Conference Council by some members of, Russian Adventist Church. And they were like, guys, where is your stand against fascism in Ukraine? Why are you not standing against Ukraine? Because, is that something that we should believe? Please leave that beast, the United States, that we preached about, and come here to Russia and take your stand here. So you can imagine how different is that narrative.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who really truly believe what they see on TV, they have tremendous moral and spiritual crisis now.
Oh, boy.
And it's a huge tragedy. And it's not easy for people to, that we've experienced that as Americans here. Last 3-4 years, they were extremely hard for us because we had also very different narratives in terms of our political views about what's happening, the way we, perceive certain processes that we have to deal with. We had a lot of controversy to the point that some people would start talking about civil war here. And you can imagine that something similar happens between Ukrainians and Russians. And that aggressive narrative, when we try to dehumanize another side, it brings very, very tragic results. It's a warning for all of us that it's very important to be able to hear each other, not to build walls, but to build bridges. Otherwise, when we're driven by fears, the worst coming in us, and we are able to create monsters that we are willing to fight with, killing innocent people. And I mean, it's tough time for Eurasian division, for sure.
Well, building bridges, I mean, that's you're building a bridge by this outreach that you're doing. I might have taken Jim's thunder there.
No. We're going to talk about the outreach. I mean, there's a reason that we're having this conversation today, because Violet has this extremely wonderful outreach that she's doing with the kids in Ukraine, and so we want to talk about that. But boy, on this, I mean, you've really touched an interesting spot when you compare the Ukrainians and the Russians to basically, if I'm hearing you right, the Democrats and the Republicans.
In some ways, yes. It's not only, political divisions. There are so many others, theological, cultural, and you name it. And every time when we try to demonize and see monsters and people who don't think like us, who don't believe like us, who don't act as, we prefer to, it creates a lot of fear. And when we are driven by fear, not by love, we try to protect ourselves. And we start building walls higher and higher and higher, to the point that we don't even perceive an opportunity to connect with people who are different. We feel like they're less than humans because of their beliefs, their political views, or whatever. And it breeds a lot of aggression. It breeds a lot of, hatred. And we become victims of our own hatred within us.
Yeah, when it becomes us versus them, it is impossible at that point to have a discussion that is productive.
Absolutely, and it is even more amplified by the world we have today with the technology that is run by, artificial intelligence. When algorithms, they pick for us information that we like to hear, and
Yeah.
we live in that informational bubble that we've created by our choices. And it's harder and harder for us to hear or witness or face different perspective because we surrounded ourselves with information that suits our worldview,
Yeah.
our views, and we become less and less capable of understanding other people, what they're coming from. And in this case, we start questioning their values.
Yeah.
We don't believe that they like us. We think they're completely crazy or unreasonable or, spoiled or, you name it.
Yeah. No, that is so true, and it's where we find ourselves right now with our political divide and this, polarization that we've got here in the United States. And one of the things that really hit me as I was thinking about, because the Ukrainian church, so those of you that aren't Adventist, the Adventist church is a worldwide church. There's around 20 million or so Adventists in the world, and Adventists have churches in basically every single country in the world, including Russia and Ukraine. And because of the war in Ukraine, the conference in Ukraine had to shut down and take their operations, and the General Conference in the United States has to take over the operations. And when that happened and I got the email that this was going on, what hit me is there's a good chance that Russian Seventh-day Adventists are fighting and killing Ukrainian Seventh-day Adventists.
Not really, because
No?
in our country there is a strong stand that we don't participate in whatever conflicts with arms. So we can support our armies by doing whatever work, but not killing people. And usually, a lot of people who come, it happened. It's after World War II. There was a part of Adventists, and Adventist Church kind of left it for personal choice of each individual to decide how they want to engage in fights. But most of the Adventists back in Russia, Ukraine,
Conscientious objectors.
yes, exactly. That's the term. So
Okay.
I doubt that there would be people who would be soldiers, but they're medical staff. There are some people who are in territorial defense forces, and they do a lot of supporting work. But mainly, Adventists are engaged in humanitarian ministries, so they provide, medical supply or services. They provide food. They try to relocate people from dangerous zones into more safe, communities. But fewer people are willing, from Adventist Church, are willing to actually engage in fighting. It's different than the United States. Here you have much more, more people who have arms, for example,
Right.
not even for the purpose of service in the military, even though it's highly respected role in society, but even own your own guns.
Yeah.
In back there, it's just like no way. And a lot of Adventists who come here, when they have to do, to go through, what's the term, to become citizens, they ask our Religious Freedom Department to issue them a letter that would explain that they are conscientious objectors
Yeah.
because of their religious beliefs.
I'll be.
Okay.
Funny thing that nowadays, a couple years ago, when we had some unrest here in Portland, a lot of them went and purchased a gun, and I was just like, "You asked me for that letter a few years ago. What are you doing now? Are you crazy?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"No, we need to protect our families."
Well,
Really.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the agenda and media can, especially those people, listen to a lot of Russian-speaking channels. And those channels try to portray the situation in the States in such a light that those people were extremely scary for their life and well-being of their families because of that information. You wouldn't believe that.
Well, they're not the only ones. There's a
Right.
lot of people that purchase guns with the last thing that
The
happened.
power
But
of
the point
media
is, the
and
point is the
social.
different
Yeah.
mindset.
Right.
So we
Yes.
understand.
They become westernized.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh boy. Yeah. So there is. Oh yeah. There is a lot of problems going on out there, and wars and rumors of wars. I mean, we
True.
know this is coming. We know it's going to happen. We've seen it happen over the years, and we're just waiting for Jesus to come so we can be over with this. And we know that they're coming faster and faster, and that time is coming closer and closer. We just keep praying that God is going to see a time when we can stop all this.
Absolutely.
And we do all that we can, or we do what we can when we can with what we have. And that's kind of what you're doing
Absolutely. You know,
in this situation as it's come up. So
yeah.
is it time to talk about that, Jim?
Yeah,
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
So we've talked in our podcast, we've talked before about the importance of Christian education for children, because if they get a Christian education when they're younger, it tends to stick with them, even if they walk away from the church. And as adults, a lot of them remember their Christian upbringing. So what you're doing for some of these kids in Ukraine is right along with that plan. So if you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, it's a huge benefit for sure. You know, when the war has started in Ukraine, the borders were closed for male Ukrainians to leave the country from a certain age, from 18 to 65, I believe. And a lot of people consciously decided to stay because they feel like it's a golden opportunity to serve communities. A lot of people are going through our churches as shelters on their way to western side of Ukraine. And they have a lot of refugees just staying in the church. They turn churches in those, how they call it, like hostels.
Hostel.
Yeah.
Like
Yes. So people,
hotel.
yes, people stay there, they eat, and then they provide transportation to take them from one town to another one. So, first days of the war, I got some phone calls from people that I know in Ukraine, and they asked Viola, can you provide, can you take our kids? Because, we're afraid. We cannot leave ourselves, but our kids, they're minor. They cannot live outside of the country by themselves. They need somebody. And, first couple days, probably you've heard or read, then they announced around 2,000 women and kids missing because, Polish government and some other governments, they couldn't provide security. And you would have people that would introduce themselves as volunteers, taking documents, passports, and then taking those women and kids somewhere. And there was big concern that, those human traffickers could, use the situation.
I was looking online today and seeing that there is a hotline for missing children, right?
Yes.
Yeah. In Poland and in the EU. I mean, there's just a hotline for missing kids because it's such a huge problem.
So you can imagine people don't speak English or Polish, and they are in different country, and they are absolutely helpless. And then somebody comes and asks, go with me, I'll help you. And I mean, people go and follow. And so those parents, they called and said, can you take kids and help them? And I had really hard time because, that time, United States, they didn't have refugee program opened. Some countries would take those kids like Canada. But again, in order to arrange them a family that they can stay with, you don't know those families. You have just to,
trust.
just trust.
Yeah.
And what if it wouldn't work? And, people who live here in Western countries, you understand how complicated it is when you have a minor on your hand and you need to provide him or her with school. You need to provide food, place to live, transportation, and it's almost, overwhelming to take care of one kid. And I'm not talking about 2, 3, 5, 10. And what my philosophy in life is, I do believe that God places us strategically. And when somebody comes for help, for me personally, I tried to do my best, believing that God provided some kind of resources. So I started thinking and praying, like, Lord, how can I help? What can I do? And I realized that the best places at this point that can shelter those kids are our boarding academies.
Yeah.
It's a safe place.
Yeah. They're set up for it.
They're set up for that.
Yeah.
They provide, lodging. They provide food. They provide medical insurance. They provide educational opportunities. They're equipped to teach those kids English because they have experience dealing with foreign students.
Yeah.
And that when I reached out to Milo Academy, I talked to Randy and Sally and asked guys if you would be willing to, take some Ukrainian kids. And they said, sure, would love to do that. And we did, it's a risk because every kid is about $20,000 per year, so those are big money for us here.
$20,000 to go to Milo Adventist Academy now.
Yes.
And that's a full year, though. That's going to take care of their food, their lodging,
their books, their
lodging,
education,
all their education,
health,
and so
travels. Everything.
Yeah, and I went to Milo Adventist Academy, so it is a wonderful place up in Roseburg. Well, it's out of Roseburg in the town of Milo or Canyonville. Yeah, that's right, Canyonville.
Days Creek. Yeah.
And so I went there, and I didn't go there long enough. I only went there for one semester, and it was a wonderful time, but I wanted to come back home. I came back home, and boy, that was a mistake. I started going to public school, and my life went pew downhill. And nobody can see my hand going downhill, but that's what it just did. But so yeah, Milo Adventist Academy is a great place. It's up in the woods. It's got a little river nearby. It's got a covered bridge. You can swim in the river. We used to fish in the river because it was all vegetarian food.
Right.
And so the only way to get any meat up there was to catch our own fish. But and then the other thing that we used to do, and I don't know if they're still doing it, but they give you a job.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was working grounds when I first started, and then I moved into the boiler room and was doing that. And so you actually have a job, so you can pay off part of your.
Absolutely, each kid would have opportunity to earn $3,500 toward their education. So they're doing their part.
Okay.
And then Milo is willing to contribute from their aid funds. And we opened Ukrainian student funds, hoping to raise another $9,500 per student to be able to cover the expenses. So, and another thing that is kind of very important at this point, Milo can do student visas. And bring those kids here legally.
No boy,
Not through Mexico, not through whatever.
That's a big deal.
And it's a big deal because, frankly saying, I'm not a big fan of illegal, ways. So I do believe that we can do our best to provide legal ways of coming here and helping people. And I do believe that besides providing just that safe place, we are contributing into the future of Ukraine and Adventist Church as well. Because people who learn English, who, build some friendship here, who, are nurtured here as students, when they would come back, they would have much, much more opportunities to be helpful, to be skillful in rebuilding that country and our church as well. Because frankly saying, if we're talking about our denomination there, in Russia, there were less and less freedoms for Protestant churches and for Adventist Church to do ministry. In Ukraine, there were much more freedom. So churches there are stronger and ministries are stronger. And I think that confrontation that happens now between Russia and Ukraine, eventually God is able to use it to free not only Ukraine, but to free Russia as well. Because Russia became like a big concentration camp in some ways. There's no freedom, there's no ability to have alternative views, beliefs from the mainstream. It's harder and harder. People are dying, people are persecuted. And, we had that freedom. I remember 90s, after the Soviet Union has collapsed. And we had 10 golden years of evangelistic efforts when people would be willing to come in thousands to hear about the gospel. There was huge hunger for divine presence in their lives. And those were golden years of opportunity. Unfortunately, as a society, there is a lot of that nostalgia for Soviet Union values and ways of, things, and the desire to
The good old days.
recreate those old days,
Right.
bring back all the aggression and violence that we witnessed there, and lack of freedom that we had back in Soviet Union, unfortunately. And my strong conviction is that God is going to use that. And yes, there is going to be a high price paid by Ukrainians who are dying to bring some healing to both countries.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? That's a perspective I have not heard yet, that this is a way to free Russians as well. And that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out, and where God's hand is on this. A lot of people see things like this, and why would God allow something like this? And sometimes you got to watch things play all the way out to find out where is God? Where is God on this? So we talk about there's, I don't know what it is, 6-7 million people. I don't know. I can't remember the last numbers of the people that have left Ukraine right now. Mostly women and children, because the men, like you said, I believe it's 18 to 60,
Are not allowed to leave.
are not allowed to leave. There are a lot of men that have left anyway. Some have snuck out. Some got out before the war. Actually, before they put the stop on it, and then and then if they have any type of medical reason, they can get out.
There are several legal ways that I'm aware of. If you have 3 or more children,
Yes.
or
yeah.
if you have disabled children, or if you have people, some dependents that you need to take care of, or if you're a student in a foreign educational institution. I know that some young guys who are not military, how to say, so they're not part of military defense or reserve,
Right.
whatever. They were able to leave country because they're students in Eastern European countries.
A lot of these people, though, the men and even the women, feel this guilt about leaving.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they feel like they're abandoning. But I mean, the reason I talk about that, there's a lot of high school boys that are still under 18.
Yes.
So when we're talking about all the people that have left Ukraine right now, how many Adventist high school students? You have any idea how many people could utilize, or they don't even have to be Adventist to come into our schools like Milo?
I can tell you that if it would be, the information would be widespread and available, we can have thousands and thousands of students who would love to come here and study. I just realized that we have limited resources.
Right.
So I would always respond to people who would send personal requests to me. So, and then those people who children are on the way of coming, I told them, if you see other families that are in need, it's not an exclusive program for Adventists or just for pastoral kids or whatever. No, it's for everybody. And if you see it, like for example, we have one single mom. Her husband passed away 2 years ago. She's a medical worker there, and she hardly able to take care of her 2 kids. And one of the ministers, he called me and he said, do you have room to take her daughter in? Of course. She's not an Adventist. She used to come to our church, and she visits once in a while, but she's not baptized. That's fine.
Yeah.
If this person needs a help and needs safe place and understands that you're coming to an Adventist school with certain rules, certain culture, and you're okay with that, and you're going to be respectful, and that's what you need at this point, then yes, sure, we'll do our best to bring them in.
Yeah.
How many people have asked you so far?
So far 17 kids are on the way.
17
Yes.
kids are on the way.
Yes.
Wow.
And more are coming, but our kind of pre-arrangement with Milo Adventist Academy was that they're willing to take 20 students
20,
for now,
right.
and then they'll see. because there is a delicate issue that in order to provide place that people can learn English, and there is gotta be a certain percentage of foreign students and native students.
Native, yeah.
And Milo has a big population of Mexican students already.
Okay.
So there is a certain amount that they can take in of students from different countries in order to be able to provide
Right.
good learning experience. So in this case, probably if Milo would reach its capacity, probably we'll start talking to Monterey Bay Academy or Auburn Academy.
So there are other academies that we can talk to,
we
not just
can. I haven't yet.
I used to live at Monterey Bay Academy too, and that's a wonderful place right on the ocean. Oh, it's
Absolutely.
the most beautiful place I ever
Absolutely,
lived.
I love that place too.
So if we're talking about 20 kids at Milo, just as a start, 20 kids at Milo, that's $400,000. That's $400,000. You have some big dreams, young lady.
It's not me. That's God.
God
He
working,
places that need, and I'm pretty sure that there are people who are equipped by Him to step in and help Milo to provide those students with ability to be there for those years.
Well, what a great thing to be able to donate to as well, because you're donating, you're helping Milo Adventist Academy, who has been struggling for a few years, right? I mean, they're coming back, but they're not near as big as even when I went there back in 80 something. I'm dating myself right now, but so you're helping Milo Adventist Academy, you're helping the Ukrainian students. I mean, you're helping so many different people if you could donate to this. And so have you worked out a way where people could send donations, could help you? I mean, do you have a number and a website? I was looking on the website of this church that we're sitting in right now. It's the Living Word Adventist Church in Oregon City. And there's actually Ukraine, help for Ukraine in their line items.
Yeah, every Slavic church here in the States, they've created Ukrainian relief funds.
Okay.
But it's not for those students. It's a
Right.
separate,
Oh,
projects,
okay,
because
okay.
we have a lot of requests from local pastors who would ask, guys, please, can you help us? We are hosting a lot of people. We need to feed them. We need a lot of gasoline to drive back and forth to bring new families from,
Oh, there's a lot of
dangerous
more needs,
city.
yeah.
Yeah, and we decided that we're going to establish that fund in order to provide for those people who send their requests. But for Milo, what we've decided to do, Milo is going to have on their front web page, if you would Google Milo Adventist Academy and you'll go there, soon you'll be able to see a button where you can go and donate. Another option would be, we're working with Milo Adventist Church that is on campus. They would create an Adventist giving on their page.
Okay, good.
Student funds, Ukrainian student funds, where you can go and through Adventist giving, send your donations. And in this case, you would be able to get tax deductible receipts that you can, use for your tax return next year. So those would be two main options. Milo Seventh-day Adventist Church and Milo
Adventist Academy.
Adventist.
Yes.
Okay.
That would redirect you to whatever they are going to establish. I know that they are working on having Cash App, Venmo, and Zelle ready for your donations.
Okay. Awesome. Well, yeah,
right.
$400,000 is like Jim said, it's a lofty goal, but we know that God has equipped people out there who
Absolutely.
have the money and can donate.
Let me scare you a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah.
more. Those $400,000 is just for 1 year. And some students are coming as freshmen, and it means that they're going to stay
4
there
years.
for some more years. So it's even bigger.
So it's
goal.
going to be an ongoing.
I love the way you think. You do
Yeah.
not think small. God does not want us to think small.
No.
He really doesn't. So, that is, yeah.
But okay, so we know there's people out there, and if you're listening, we encourage you to go to the websites and please donate. If there's somebody who just does not have money, are there other ways that they can help? How
Absolutely.
can they give and help this situation?
Absolutely. Just to finish, Milo kind of
Milo,
fundraiser
yeah.
part. Milo is stretching every dollar, so they said that they're going to probably be able to provide for each student for less than $20,000, so 15,000 or less. So they're working to make their resources, be able to cover as many students as possible. So, and I respect them and appreciate their graceful and generous attitude toward that. There is another ways. For example, on my side, I took my personal, again, it's my step of faith as well, a personal responsibility paying for other travel expenses. For example, each student has to pay for student visa $350. Then another form costs $160. And then to buy a ticket to bring a student in would cost around $700 one way. And then after that, when they arrive, I need to buy them everything that they need in their dorm rooms. So bedding,
School
lights,
supplies,
shampoo,
Okay.
sometimes
wow.
some clothes items, so whatever they need to be able, because some people are capable of, packing wisely, and some people had to flee, so
Yeah.
the only thing that they have a small, backpack, that's it. So I would appreciate if some people want to participate. If you have travel points that you can donate to buy tickets, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you have iPads or Chromebooks or laptops that you're not using, if you can send them in, that also would be greatly appreciated. If you can provide gift cards to Fred Meyer, Amazon gift cards, or any other stores where students can go and buy like a comforter or couple notebooks or stuff like that. It would be also greatly appreciated. Or you can, if you, again, those are the main things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So people, if they have laptops or Chromebooks they're not using, they can get them to you.
Or iPads.
Or iPads.
Yeah, they
okay.
take Apple too.
And if you have if you have airline miles that you don't use or don't plan on using, or
just want to
gift,
That's
then
awesome.
you can do that. So Violet, do you want to give a phone number that people could reach you, or how would be the best way people could reach you if they have any questions about that? Because I would gladly give mine out right here if I and be a intermediary between whoever's listening and you, if you would like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my number is 503-891-6040. That's 503-891-6040. It's my cell phone. And so if you call that and want to donate to Violet, I will connect you with her and kind of be your screening system.
That would be awesome, yes.
Okay.
Another way, you are welcome to find me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Violeta Bilan. And I can befriend you, or you can befriend me, and we can
They
talk.
can message you even
Yes.
if they don't want to be your friend. But
Absolutely, okay. If you don't want to be my friend, that's fine too.
I'm kidding.
She's very friendly.
Yeah, she's very friendly.
Actually, all people on my Facebook that I have,
Yeah.
they're people that I know personally. I don't accept
Right.
invitations
Yeah.
to people
That's
that I
kind of
don't
what I
know.
meant.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But yes, so find and Violeta Bilan.
Violeta Bilan.
Violeta Bilan. If you can spell that, you can find her.
Yeah, Violeta like violet with A at the end.
Okay.
And Bilan, B as in a boy, I, L as in Larry, A, N as in Nancy. Very simple.
Very simple.
Yes. And I work for Oregon Conference, so you'll be able to identify me.
Yes, you can always call the Oregon Conference, and they will find a way to connect you to Violet or Violeta or Violeta. However you want to say it, she seems to accept it.
Yep.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being part of this podcast today. It's been such a pleasure having you here. And thank you for everybody that's listening. And I hope that you learned something today. Did you learn something today, Angela?
I learned a lot today.
I did too. It was amazing. And we were talking about, well, what do we want to try to put out on this podcast for people to learn something? And I thought, well, you know what? Violet's going to teach us all kinds of stuff.
Yep.
So,
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate that.
oh, it's our pleasure.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah. Okay. So, hey, everybody, God bless. Have a great day. And we will see you again soon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.